All attendees are in listen-only mode.
I'd like to convene the March 1st, 2021 Single Family Design Board. May I have a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. This is Mary. I'll go ahead and take the roll call. We have Chair Miller,
Here.
Vice Chair Sweeney,
Here.
Board Member Kloss,
Here.
Board Member Klein,
Here.
Board Member Motisha,
Here.
and Board Member Ziegler is here but having issues with his audio. While we work on that, we have a quorum. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on to general business, opening it up to public comments. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within its jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for the public discussion. Do we have anyone that would like to speak or has written a letter or email?
Thank you, Chair Miller. If you are attending by webinar and would like to comment on an item not on today's agenda, please follow the directions on screen and raise your hand by clicking the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel, which indicates that you wish to speak. While we wait for hands, Mary, did we receive any written comment for items not on today's agenda?
Thank you, Chair Miller and Barbara. We did not receive any general written correspondence for today's agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary, there are no hands raised, so Chair Miller, I will hand it back to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item B.
Chair Miller, I have a question.
Yes.
Would now be the appropriate time for me to ask about an item that was on public comment last meeting?
Sure.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, this is Fred. I would suggest, Ms. Kloss, that we do that at the discussion for approving those the minutes of the last meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Moving on to item B, approval of minutes for the Single Family Design Board meeting of February 16th, 2021. May I have a motion for approval, please?
I make that motion.
May I have a second?
I have two items in regards to the meeting minutes.
Okay, if we could second it, then we'll go through the items and then you can hopefully address your questions.
I'm happy to second it.
Okay, great. So let's move through the items. Item number one.
Item number one is I wanted to ask staff if there had been follow-up in regards to Mr. Clausen's comments. He was one of the public commentators in last week's
Hold on a
meeting.
second, Leslie. Sorry to interrupt you. Let me say the address first before you ask your questions. I apologize.
No, Mr. Chair, she's not addressing the item number one. She's addressing the beginning of the agenda, which I also have comments on.
Okay,
Yeah,
so thank you. Okay, so we're not to item number one. So what is your question, Leslie? Go ahead.
So let me be clear. This is under general business on the meeting minutes under item A2.
Okay.
It was Mr. Clausen's comments from our last meeting where he was inquiring as to the protocols that are currently underway due to COVID as it relates to Brown Act and protocols and the way that things are being captured in the meeting minutes. He had concerns, I think, about the discussion items that weren't being reflected, possibly correspondence that we were receiving from the public and that not being captured. And I wanted to know if staff had followed up on that and if they had gotten any clarification from the city attorney in terms of whether we're compliant with Brown Act or if there's other issues that we need to be addressing as a committee.
Thank you, Board Member Kloss and Chair Miller, rest of the board. Mr. Clausen's comments were in regards to disclosures of individual correspondence to review boards. He did have 3 requests. He wanted a simple phrase or sentence describing the content of each written correspondence to review boards to be announced with the writer's name at the end of each public comment session. He also wanted an announcement before each agenda item on the number of virtual attendees, and for the minutes to list the names and descriptions of the comments that were spoken or written. We are looking into that with the City Attorney's Office, still working on a response to that. I can tell you that very soon the city website will contain a page where public comments are posted. However, I will get back to you with further information on this topic.
Okay, that's great. So I won't inquire about that again. I'll just wait for staff to report back to us. Thank you. And then the last item I had was, oh, we'll wait now because mine is for item 2, so you can roll through the items. Sorry, Chair Miller.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I also have something under the first part of the agenda. Mr. Bolton, can we go back to the front part of the agenda, please? Where we see A and B, yes. Yeah, okay, under D, under announcements, I made a formal parliamentary inquiry, and I don't know if that got missed or whatever, but it's not mentioned at all as comments under item D. And I made 2 formal parliamentary inquiries with regards to Robert Rules of Order. One was the length of public comment, and the second one was on accurate minutes as described in Robert's Rules of Order. Can we have that put into today's minutes before we approve them? Is that possible?
I believe we can. Yes, we can add that to the minutes. My apologies that isn't in there. And I do have a response for you on those items when it's appropriate.
Okay, and then just to follow up Ms. Colos's comments about the public comment, it would seem to me that part of the inquiry to the city attorney's office, it will show, if you go back up to A, Mr. Bolton, that we had 2 public speakers, Mr. Colson and Ms. Lodge. And it seems to me that if somebody was looking at this set of minutes only without any ability to link up to the video, that they'd want to know what those 2 people spoke on. And I think Sheila Lodge would be simply that she was here to inform us that she's now the liaison from the Planning Commission to our board. I don't know that there's anything controversial about being able to say that. And as Ms. Colson pointed out, Mr. Clausen was here to inquire about public input. So it seems to me, if the response to my other question about the amount of detail to minutes, that wouldn't be unreasonable to expect to be shown on the minutes. And yes, Ms. Burkhardt, do you have any responses to my formal inquiries? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so your first question was about the chair or the board's authority to extend the public comment period from 2 minutes to 3 minutes per person. The SFDB General Design Guidelines and Meeting Procedures does call out 2 minutes as the length of time that we use in these hearings. However, it is at the chair's discretion to grant more time if he or she sees fit. So I think yes is the answer to your question. It would just be on a case-by-case basis. And then your second question was about the meeting minutes and why they aren't more detailed. The city attorney's office let us know it is the city's practice to prepare action minutes. The meetings are televised, they're recorded, they are posted on the website where any member of the public can review video archives. And if you would like, as a board, we can agendize this topic for a future meeting and ask Tava Ostringer from the City Attorney's Office to join us and discuss these topics more fully.
Ms. Burkhardt, I would like that because it seems to me the response we're getting is not in alignment with how I read Robert's Rules of Order. And perhaps I'm reading him incorrectly, but it still doesn't answer to my satisfaction, the question. The other thing that even if their interpretation holds true, there's nothing in these minutes that one would look at as a public member to allow them to figure out how to link to the video. So it seems to me at the very least, there might be something at the top of these minutes, maybe it's there, I don't see it, that says if you have a question as a public member about these minutes, here's the link to that meeting date and video. And maybe that should be the item that's on these adopted minutes. So again, that's an extended part of my question. So maybe it is appropriate that Ms. Ostringer makes a visit to us to explain a little further about what our inquiry is.
Okay,
Thank
we can
you.
agendize that. We really shouldn't discuss it today. It's not an agendized discussion, and we should get back to the minutes here. Thank
All
you.
right. Appreciate that. And as a note for myself, I think we'll kind of go through general business when I go through the minutes as well, and because we tend to bypass this section. So this is an important aspect to kind of quickly review the minutes from the previous session. So moving on with that, and without any more comment, let's go to the first item that we're supposed to review for minutes or from our previous meeting. Is 412 Quarantina Street. Any comment or suggestions for changes or anything? Okay, hearing none, moving on to the next item. 2436 De La Vina Street.
This was the only item that I had, Chair Miller.
Yes.
Under item 5 for the
Yes.
motion, there was discussion about the front porch and its relationship to the setback. I think we also discussed materials on that, and specifically the cortan as potentially not being acceptable, and that doesn't seem to be captured.
When you say captured, can you elaborate?
It doesn't seem that that has been included in the minutes. So item 5 reads, further delineation of materials on the porch shall be provided, including colors, so that the board can understand what is being proposed. But I recall a conversation about cortan and wrapping of the porch members in cortan as not being acceptable.
But Ms. Colson, this is Fred. Was that a part of the maker of the, who made the motion? I can't read the bottom. It's not
I
on the
think
screen.
you made the motion perhaps, Fred, Mr. Sweeney.
Okay. Yeah, I do recall that. We'd have to go back and look at the video to see if those words are in there, but I do recall that conversation.
It might have been kept more general than this, but I just wanted to bring it up.
Board Member
Well-
Colas, I can go back and look at the video and edit the minutes as necessary on that item.
That'd be great if it's actually captured. If not, I think the general request for materials clarification probably works.
Yeah, it shows on the minutes that I wasn't supportive of the approach at all anyway, but I don't know. Okay, any other comment? Okay, moving on to the next item. 242 Salida del Sol was postponed, so moving on to the next item. 34 East Pedregosa Street. Item number 5, 1236 West Mitchell Terrena Street. Hearing no other comments or suggestions, may I have a roll call, please?
All right, we have Chair Moore. I'm sorry, Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Board Member Colas,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler. All right, so it looks like his audio's still not working. Oh,
So
he-
this seems to be a reoccurring issue with Mr. Ziegler. I'm wondering if how we can kind of help him out here. No. Like someone could go over there to his house or something, but it's not my purview.
Chair Miller, we are working behind the scenes with him on this.
Okay,
It does seem to be a recurring issue. Maybe
all right.
Board Member Ziegler, you can give a thumbs up or thumbs down on your vote in the meantime.
Board Member Ziegler?
Seems to me there's thumbs up. Yeah.
All right, so Board Member Ziegler's thumbs up signals in approval. The motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, moving on to item C, consent calendar for March 1st, 2021. My understanding, there wasn't a consent meeting on February 16th? Just to get clarification?
There was, we went over those minutes at the full board meeting on February 16th. However, there was no consent meeting on February 22nd.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So may I have a motion for approval of the consent calendar for March 1st, please? Fred, you're muted.
So moved, sorry.
That's okay. A second, please.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. Ms. Burkhart, can you go through the items, please?
Sure. Item A was 1236 West Mitchell Torino Street. The action was for final design approval. And item B was 333 East Mission Street. The action was for project design approval and final approval. The reviewers were Board Member Motisha and Klein.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to item D, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items and appeals. Do we have any of those?
I'm sorry, Chair Miller. I'll just go ahead and take a roll call vote for that last.
Oh, I apologize. Go ahead, sorry.
No worries. Thank you. We have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Board Member Kloss,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler. And Board Member Ziegler's thumbs up signals an approval for the minutes. The motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Again, moving on to item D, any announcements, continuances or withdrawals or future agenda items or appeals?
Yes, Chair Miller, I do have an announcement. At our February 16th full board meeting, an item for 242 Salida del Sol was postponed. The applicant had asked to be continued for today. However, I just wanted to let you know that the applicant has withdrawn the application for that project, so it won't be heard today. We did have a lot of public interest on that project, so I just wanted to let you know. Thank you.
Could I make a comment on that project?
Sure.
I'm driven by 2 or 3 different times, and every time we have it on our agenda, it's a new item. And it seems like there's a lot of work going on there that somebody keeps putting off. May I finish? I suggest that the board can't do anything, but I suggest that the building department look into what we may be putting off and putting off at the request of the owners that is not kosher. Sorry, that, but I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. That's my comment.
Board Member Matuszak.
Mr. Chair, before Ms. Burkhardt speaks, I did request at the hearing last time that Ms. Burkhardt find out what was going on and whether the building department needed to go out there or whatever. I did drive by there on Saturday, and I did notice that there is now in the window a green building permit document and another white document. I didn't get out of the car to go look, but it appears there is some recognition that there is a building department permit on the job, Joe. I don't know what that describes. Maybe Ms. Burkhardt can share with us.
Thank you, Board Member Motisha and Vice Chair Sweeney, Chair Miller. There are 2 active building permits for that address. The building department has been out there. They're conducted and passed all the required inspections. We even had them check a shed in the back that we thought might have, we got a complaint that it had electricity, but it's fine. The building inspector did go out there and look at that specifically as well. There's construction going on towards the front of the house on the first level that is permitted. However, this most recent application was for a second floor, and that application has been withdrawn, and the property owner has abandoned that project at this time.
All right, thank you. So I hope this all gets resolved. So, okay, moving on to item E, subcommittee reports. I don't think we have any at this time. So let's move on to the scheduled items for today. Item number 1 is 36 Rincon Vista Road. This is a new item for concept review. I'll read it into the minutes. Proposal for the demolition of an existing 2,225 square foot, 3-story single-family residence and construction of a 3,470 square foot, 3-story single-family residence and alterations to existing attached 2-car garage. A new pool is also proposed as part of the project. A minor zoning exception is requested for alterations to the existing garage located within the front setback, including an increase of overall roof height. No final appealable action will be taken at this hearing. Project does require neighborhood preservation findings and hillside design district and slope lot findings. Do we have a representative for this project?
Yes.
Chair Miller. Ms. Sherry, I did send you a webcam request. I'm going to send another one.
I can see myself.
We are
I
not
can
seeing
see all of you and I can see myself.
Interesting. Oh, there you
I'm
are.
on the same line as you.
Great. You can see you. Chair Miller, I did want to make a quick comment if that's okay before the applicant starts.
Yes, please.
Okay. I just wanted to let you know this application for this project has been through 1 round of completeness review with the city. The application has been deemed incomplete. However, the project is before you today for comments that will help inform further development of the project as they work towards completeness. And with that, I will hand it over to the applicant for their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. My name is Dawn Sherry. I'm the architect for the project. And also with me today in my office across the room are the property owners, my clients, David and Janice Sims. After I do a presentation, they'd like to say a few words. So if I can get them and their microphone working, they'll do it from over there. Otherwise, I'll let them share my screen. The first thing I'd like to do is pull up the photographs. So I'm so used to going through the photographs first, and then for some reason during this last year, I never get to do that. So, this existing property is, as stated, 36 Rincon Vista. This is the view looking southeast toward Rincon from the street at the existing residence. The photo below is looking from east to west from the other side of the street at the east elevation of the existing garage. And the residence, you can see the residence beyond. Next page. This is the view from the lower portion of the south elevation of the existing residence looking east. And then the lower photo is looking north at the back of the existing garage. This photo is particularly valuable to remember because the existing garage is where you see that window on the upper level, and then down below is the understory of the garage. That garage is right, you'll see it when I go to the site plan, is right on the street. Next page. This is looking west at the south elevation of the existing house at an existing covered patio. And then the photo below is the looking north across the street at the adjacent neighbor that looks down at this house from above. Next page. This is looking northwest across the street at the property that's adjacent to the one I just showed you. And then the one below that is, again, an overall street kind of scape of Rincon Vista. It's a smallish street that ends at the end of that photo is a cul-de-sac. It's kind of a narrow street, and there's a lot of hedges and not a lot of parking. Is there any more? This is the adjacent lot to the east of the subject parcel, also owned by my clients. It's a vacant lot at this time, and with a couple of very large oak trees. And then the photo below is the photo looking from Las Alturas Road up to the south elevation of the subject parcel and the existing house. So, when I was contacted by David and Janice, we first looked at how can we maintain this house. Their first intent was to, look at adding on to it, renovating it, restoring it, because it is an older home that has a lot of good qualities. It's a Spanish style, kind of a traditional home. It's made it through a couple of fires. We thought that in an effort to, pay homage to that house, that we would try to use it. And then we started looking at how many levels there were, and there's about 5 levels to that house. From the street, I don't know if you want to go back to the photo. Can we go back to a photo? The first page of the photos, just to show you. Yeah, right there. That is a photo of on the top photo. The left side is the existing garage that's right at the street level. And then the house is it's a 3-story house. You're seeing 2 of those stories. And then you can see by the placement of all of the windows that there's a lot of different levels, most of which are hidden behind the hedge. But what became apparent was that it was going to be impossible to get this house to a place where we could get large open living areas at one level and add on enough square footage without just destroying the whole house. And in addition to that, we had a geological report done by Adam Simmons that pointed out some deficiencies in the existing foundation and retaining walls, as well as the drainage on the east side of the house. And in his study, he states that the original 1934 built residence was found to be in poor to fair condition with some notable cracking and sloping floors. He goes on to talk about the settlement, and he goes on to say that the newer garage was built in better condition with a better foundation. So Then he goes on to say that he recommends replacement of some of the retaining walls in the basement, as well as digging a deep French drain all the way around the east side of the house, which is this elevation that you're seeing now, that would have been hugely disruptive to try to get all this to take place and save the house. So with that, we went to looking at what a new residence would look like on this property. And then, of course, then we're working with conforming setbacks, of which this existing residence has none. So we started looking at the existing garage, and how we remembered that the foundation was built rather well, and we thought, well, maybe we could save that garage. But we first tried to get an entirely new residence built with conforming setbacks, which would have been 25 feet from right of way. What that did was it forced the garage so far down the hill that the driveway would have been about a 9 or a 10-foot drop and a fairly steep slope. And then with the program requirements of wanting to have the garage at the same level at the house, it made it really impossible to do that, to conform to all the new setbacks and get a house on this property at all with the garage and the main living space at one level. Another thing, we kept working on that and for months. And another thing we looked at when we had the opportunity now to look at rebuilding was we looked at the style, and we decided that a contemporary farmhouse approach to this house was more in keeping with the lifestyle and the way that the family was going to use the house, with the ability to add a lot more light and lighter colors and open spaces, large openings to the pool. We also knew that this property was going to have a series of retaining walls that supported it, and by picking this approach of a kind of a lighter architecture that was grounded by a stone wall, retaining wall pedestal, would break up the massing. You'll see that in a minute when we get to the other renderings. So back to our approach, we started realizing that the full conforming brand new residence wasn't really going to work for this site. So we thought, what if we change the flat roof of the existing garage and put a pitched roof on it, and change the direction of the garage door, orienting it west and providing an approach that would allow us to do a turnaround so that they could head out into the very narrow street and provide vehicular, massively improved vehicular maneuverability by doing so. And that's what you're seeing on this front elevation right now. And in doing that, what we realized is that we could pretty much go back to the same massing as the existing house in terms of height. We are not, even though the agenda said something about increasing the overall height, they're referring to the garage, because we added a pitched roof on the garage and replacing the flat roof. The height of the new residence that you're seeing in this image is not higher than the existing house. I think in one corner, you'll see it when we get to the sections, in one very small corner, one tiny piece of the elevation exceeds the existing height limit, but it's still well below the allowable height limit. So another thing that did was being sensitive to the west neighbors. What it did was it maintained their visibility by not moving this whole house down the hill. And so I guess what I'm trying to say in all this is it's important to know the background to where we got to where we are, because a significant amount of thought has gone into the placement and the design of this house based on sensitivity to the site, the neighborhood, the existing neighbors, the existing thread of the neighborhood, and the architectural, character. It's a little bit diverse, But we still feel that the contemporary farmhouse is still very much in keeping with the neighborhood. So I think go to the site plan, which is, I think, the next page. That's the survey. It shows the adjacent lot that, yeah, it shows this one, this is the site plan. Shows the adjacent lot to the east that's also owned by David and Janice. And it shows the gray is the new footprint. You can see the old footprint to the, it's kind of small on the screen. I could point, yeah, zoom in, thank you. To the east of the garage, the short dashed line with an arrow, there's a note there to the east of the garage, indicates the outline of the existing house. And it goes, the front wall of the living rooms, yes, goes right to about the middle of the house. But what you're not seeing on this drawing is that there's a large covered porch that's not shown. That also is to the south of that short dash line, pretty much in the area where it says new single family residence, 36 Rincon Vista Road. That's where the covered patio is. So this illustrates our attempt at keeping the house in what we feel is the best site location for the property, the neighbors, the vehicular maneuverability, the program requirements, and then the challenge is just keeping the retaining wall heights manageable. So that was the next few months of design. So what I'd like to do is then go to next page. And here's the site section through the existing garage. Similar design, a 3-level house. And the main level, which is cut through the kitchen here, has the main entertainment patios on that same level. You can see that in the background, you'll see the pool that's slightly dropped and the spa. And then stairs down, exterior stairs down to a lower guest suite. And then what you're seeing there at the bottom level is an exercise room. And then the retaining walls. And then the site section below that is cut through the main living room element. Next page. This is can't see it. Lower level, this is the lower level floor plan of the guest suite with the covered patio and the fitness room. Next page. This is the main floor plan. Kitchen, dining room, living room, all open plan, and then their bedroom on this level. It's the only bedroom on this level because there's not enough lot area to get any more footprint on this level without compromising the outside spaces, which were important. And then you can see the pool about 4 risers down, and the spa spills into the pool, and it has its own little deck off to the southeast. The location and placement of this pool, you'll see it on the renderings, was very sensitive. We wanted the pool to have a presence with the main house and not be lost in, hey, let's go swim and then we'll be back up to the house later. We wanted the pool and the occupants and the people that are around the pool area and the decks to all have the same experience, and with the people that are cooking in the kitchen. And so it was all, but it's tricky because we don't have a lot of lot area. So you'll see on the renderings how we were able to achieve this. Next page. This is the upper level. The stairs go up to 2 separate bedrooms with their own bathrooms. And then as you get to the top of the stairs, it overlooks the living room. There's a little sitting room right at the top of the stairs that functions as an office and a deck. What you're seeing to the bottom of the page are 2 louvered, mechanically operated.
Don, do you need more time? Your 15 minutes is up. Sorry to interrupt you, but I just need to know if you need a little more time.
I do. Not much. I'm trying to go
All right.
fast.
Okay.
Those are the louvers that you're seeing on the covered deck. So next page. Roof plan, next page. Exterior elevations, south elevation and north elevation. You're gonna see this better in rendering in a minute. Next page. Side elevations. Next page. Front elevation is to the upper left, and then the east elevation with the stone pedestal that I was explaining is to the right. The lower left is the view from bird's eye view of the south elevation, showing the exercise room in that pedestal area, and then the lower right is the west elevation, the ocean beyond. Next page. Aerial, off to the right of that is a enlargement of the entry experience. Again, that contemporary farmhouse. The lower left is the aerial, and then the lower right illustrates, if you could zoom in on the lower right, shows the pool and how the stone steps just kind of disappear into the pool and become part of the pool. And the master bedroom is off to the west, and the kitchen is off to the right. Obviously, the living room is the main element. So I think that is, hold on. We have a few minor zoning exceptions that we're requesting that I should mention. One is the alterations to the garage that are under the threshold of requiring a mod, because we were able to stay under the threshold of a height increase for the new roof and not a slope of over 4 and 12. And another MZE for possibly 2 pilasters at the entryway that we might want to exceed 42 inches, and a hedge for just additional privacy along that street, because it's so close to the house, and the existing trash location also needs to be maintained right at the front of the house, and it would be in the setback, accessible to the trash company, and that would also require an MZE. And that's the end of my presentation.
All right, thank you very much. All right, moving it back to the board. Did we have any public comment, Barbara?
Oh, wait, sorry. I wanted to hand over can the client say just a few words?
No, you're 50, they can, okay, how much time do they need? Because they should have said it within the 15 minutes.
I'm sorry, it's a big project, and I apologize for spending
We've
so
got to
much
be
time.
respectful of other projects too, so.
Do you
I'll
guys
give you
want
2 minutes. You have 2 minutes.
2 minutes?
Yes.
You get on? Hold on.
My name's David Sims, and my wife and I are here. Happy to be here, and thank you all for considering our project. I just wanted to let everybody know that we're very excited about it. So excited that when we learned about the hearing, we came out from Chicago, we rented a place, and we got to meet all of our neighbors and shared with them our plans. And especially important, we wanted to be very sensitive to the owners of the house immediately next door, and immediately above us, and immediately below us, and then across the street, up, and one over, because they're the ones who are going to be most affected. And we understand the design guidelines. We've read through those, and we, like Don said, we tried really hard to come up with a solution that works best for the neighborhood and suits our lifestyle. So anyway, I hope if anybody has any questions for me, don't hesitate to ask. Otherwise, you can ask Don.
Okay, thank you very much. Now moving it back to, do we have any public comment, Barbara?
Thank you, Chair Miller. If you are attending by webinar and would like to comment on this item, please follow the directions on screen and raise your hand by clicking the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel, which indicates that you wish to speak. While we wait for hands, Mary, did we receive any written comment for this item?
Thank you, Chair Miller and Barbara. We did receive written correspondence for this item, but it was received after the 10 a.m. deadline, so it's up to the board's discretion if they reviewed it, but otherwise no additional written correspondence had been received. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mary. I do have two hands raised. Let's see, I'm gonna call on Lori Thrower. I'm gonna unmute your microphone and you will have 2 minutes to speak whenever you're ready.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. Hi, my name is Lori Thrower and I represent the property owners at 446 Los Alturas Road. So that would be, and I also live on the property as well. That would be from, that's the property that runs from Los Alturas up to Rincon Vista. So the sloped portion of the property, of our property, is next to what the vacant lot is 40 Rincon Vista, just to orient it. We think that the property, the house from the plans looks like it will be very lovely. And we were very relieved to find out that the footprint of the property is contained within the parcel at 36 Rincon Vista. So that was a relief. Our only concern at this point would just be on the impact of the construction and demolition process on the neighborhood. Specifically, there was a large water main break in 1999 on Rincon Vista above our property. And we're just concerned about having the stress on the area of having large dumpsters or heavy equipment parked there. And so that is really our main only concern at this point. And we do want to point out there are 2 legal parking spots on Rincon Vista at the end of the cul-de-sac for parking for vehicles that are necessary. So I don't know if that's anything that's appropriate to address at this point, but we would just want to have that in the record and to call that to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We do have one more hand raised. I'd like to call on Michael and Ruth Ann Collins. I'm going to unmute you now. Your mic is live. You have 2 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon. We're Michael and Ruth Ann Collins. We live at 20 Rincon Vista, which is 3 doors west of the current project. We've lived there since 1972. We'd just like to remind the board that 36 Rincon Vista, the project, that house is the only house on the street that hasn't burned since it was built. So the other houses on the street were really designed to fit in with the moderate size, Spanish style, 2-story structure that is currently there at 36 Rincon Vista. All the other properties on the street as well have made their best effort to conform to the slope. As you know, that the Rincon area, Rincon Vista and Los Alturas, is quite steeply sloped. And it appears to us with the way the new driveway's being laid out for the new project, that there's going to be a lot of fill that's going to have to raise that driveway up to the street level, because that slope from the street down to the current entrance of the current house is about a 10 or 12 foot drop. So we're concerned that instead of walking along that narrow street, we won't be looking into some nice landscaping. We'll be looking into a large driveway and a large house. Although that lot is a huge lot. It goes all the way down to Los Alturas, and we're just wondering why more of the structure can't be spread more throughout the lot. And I would think that it would be best to remove the garage and to solve the parking problem in some other way. As I mentioned before, the parking on that street is just a devil. Garbage trucks have a difficult time getting down. The fire trucks, when they're there, they have saved that street at least once in the last 10 years from fires, and they need access. And so we're very concerned about on-street parking. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very
Chairman,
much.
we do have one more hand raised. I would like to call on John Ritchie. I will unmute your microphone. Let's see, I'm going to send you a request. Okay, I just sent you an unmute request, Mr. Ritchie.
Bye,
Great.
can you hear me?
Yes, your microphone is live. You have 2 minutes to speak.
Okay, thank you. My name is John Ritchie, and I live at 10 Rincon Vista. And so I will just simply reiterate the concerns that Mike and Ruth Ann just expressed relative to the narrowness of the street. It is at best about a lane and a half at the point where 36 Rincon Vista is. Congestion in a construction would be very, very crowded. So what I'd ask is that the owners talk to their builder. If they get to that point, that the Sims would talk to their builders about having some sort of carpooling arrangement or shuttle service up the hill, because it is very difficult to get traffic on that street, including garbage trucks. Further, I think the street itself, and this is a Santa Barbara issue, is in pretty bad shape right there. So heavy construction equipment is going to further deteriorate the street. And we might want to consider a bond is going to be needed for damage to shrubbery, retaining walls, mailboxes, etc. So any member who's interested in driving Rincon Vista to see just how narrow it is and the type of equipment, that might be give you some additional insight into it. The other thing is I would very quickly kind of reiterate what Mike has said. It does seem as if the renderings almost seem like they're raising the entry of the house to street level versus it being about 10 to 12 feet below grade now. And so I do think that's going to have a pretty significant effect on the hillside and the structure, but I know you've got people that will work through the right enforcement of retaining walls. So that's it.
Thank you. Chair Miller, there are no hands raised, so I'll hand it back to you for questions.
All right, thank you. I will bring it back to the board for questions. I will go down the list. First is Board Member Sweeney. Do you have any questions, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have several. I don't know if the two previous public speakers might be able to answer this, but my memory of the history of this portion of the Riviera, particularly at Las Alturas, those homes were destroyed in the Sycamore Canyon fire. I would assume that was the last fire that swept through that area. My memory serves me when I first came to Santa Barbara. I also may be aware that the two homes at the end of Rincon Vista have standing seam metal roofs, and I believe they may have been approved before this board existed. I'm not sure, or they may have been approved through a accelerated process for approval, which was done after one of the fires. I'm not quite sure. So I just wanted to share that piece of information with the board and maybe, if necessary, some clarification from staff on the history of the street. The first question I have is perhaps we could go back. Do we have a site section showing the house from the street as it drops down to Las Alturas? We have that somewhere? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so perhaps Ms. Sherry could tell us where is the existing floor level entry of the existing house in relationship to this drawing? Maybe, I don't know if Mr. Bolton can indicate that. Do we know where that was or is?
I can attempt to answer that question. I have a mask on now because I might sound a little muted. So the existing entryway is about I would say 5 feet below the level of the existing road, below the garage.
So if Mr. Bolton has his little hand configuration there, under the G of garage, yeah, right there, if you come down, there's the finished floor of the garage. Yeah, right there. And then, so you're saying that the current entry level is about 5 feet down from that point. Is that what you just said? Correct?
Yes, and it's approximately grid line number 2.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then the other question I have, of the 2,200 square feet of new building that's described in the project description, am I to assume that that's roughly the amount of building that's going to get carried to the landfill?
No, I'm not sure I understand. You mean the house itself?
Yeah,
The demolition of the house itself?
It says we're going to demolish 2,225 square feet of house. So I'm assuming that most all of that is going to the landfill, correct?
Yeah, or recycling.
Okay.
I don't have an answer to exactly where it goes, but yes.
Okay, it's going off the site. And then in addition to, under the definition of grading, we had the building department a while back come and educate this board about grading versus soil removed to build a house. Is there additional grading that has not been calculated yet, for instance, to create the driveway, et cetera? Do we have those figures yet, or is that on a list of things to do?
That should be part of the cut and fill calcs that have been included in the submittal.
Well, but we don't have that on, we usually see that on the written description. Is it somewhere on the drawings?
It's on the title sheet.
And so how many yards are being taken off or brought on, or do we know?
I can't read. It's in the square footage breakdown. It's too
But not
small.
in yards. Yeah. The reason I'm asking about yards, it's usually about 10 to 12 cubic yards per dump truck that will either enter the site or leave the site if soil is being brought in or taken off. So we're getting fill. Oh, there it is, cubic yards. So 2,700. So that's 26, 28 truckloads coming in, and we've got just 125 being cut out. Okay, thank you. And then, one of the other questions I had, Ms. Sherry, you indicated there was a lot of study of the existing house before you decided it would be better to tear it down and start over. Did this project get in its historical assessment, et cetera, or did Ms. Hernandez weigh in on that?
We did check with the city before we even thought about demolishing the house to make sure that there was no historical significance that would require a historical report or would otherwise jeopardize our ability to even think in that direction. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then could you go to the site plan and just for clarification, make sure I understand where this is. You're asking for a modification for the trash area. And you said something about some entry post or pilasters. Where exactly are those?
So we're not asking for any modifications, but we are required to go through a minor zoning exception at MZE for the existing trash, which is located to the east of the existing garage at street level. So
where is that on the drawing somewhere?
Yeah, we haven't shown it, but I'm just telling you where it is. So see where it says short dashed line? See that note to the east of the garage?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So right next to the garage, nestled against the garage at street level, we haven't designed it yet, but move your cursor east to the right.
Okay, so there'll be a trash area in there somewhere. So
yes.
That's as I understand it, that's a decision that's made by this board, not by the staff hearing officer. Is that correct, Ms. Burkhardt?
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay.
There have been a couple more minor zoning exceptions added to the project description since item has been agendized. So that's one of them.
Okay, and then there was something about some pilasters or something. Is that up at the driveway entry or somewhere else?
Yeah,
Where is that?
See the property line, how it cuts the apron? So not
Yeah.
really there. But the pilasters would have to be on the inside of the property line, right at that curve, because we already know from past experience that Public Works wouldn't support pilasters in the right of way at all. So they would have to be one on either side of that driveway, just to provide a sense of privacy and an anchor for a front hedge. And we're not talking about a 10-foot hedge here, or even an 8-foot hedge. We're talking about a 6-foot high maximum hedge that would be anchored by those pilasters.
And those pilasters would be what, 6 feet or more or less?
Yeah, or 5, or maybe even 4 with a light on top of them. We don't know yet.
And you don't have a drawing yet of what those look like, correct?
No.
And there's not an intention to put a gate there of any sort, correct?
No, well, we'd love to, but we won't be able to. No. Yeah.
Okay.
We'd love to have
And
a
then,
sliding gate, but transportation
okay.
wouldn't allow.
All right, and then let's see. One last question. Back to that section. Maybe it is on that section, and I didn't see it. You've indicated there's some trellises with a louver. Oh yeah, it is. Maybe it's down on the. Is it that section or the one below that?
Well,
Right there. Yeah, that open area, what appears to be, is that a trellis with louvers in it, or the louvers aren't drawn in there yet? Between
yeah, they're drawn. They're
7
just
and 6?
small.
7 and 6. So that's where those louvers would occur, and it's hard. If we were in person, I would just take my scale and read it, and I wouldn't even have to ask you a question. But I can't do that with electronic drawing. So what's the underside height of that trellis from the finished ground level or the patio level? Do we know what that is, more or less?
I think it's 9 feet.
9
It
feet,
might.
okay.
It might be 10. It's 9 or 10. I can't read it from here.
Okay, all right. Okay, and at this point, let's see, one thing that wasn't on the project description, but I did go in and look at the drawings. And I think I saw that this project was 85% FAR, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then the other procedural question I had was regarding well, I lost it. I'll worry about that later. That answers most of my questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Board Member Colas, do you have any questions, please?
I just want to follow up on the question that Mr. Sweeney had asked. So, Ms. Sherry, the existing front wall of the residence itself, I think you had stated that that was at approximately grid line 2. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you go back to the other section, I don't have the existing floor plan, but I believe the entryway was behind the existing garage. Is that correct?
Okay, so the front wall, for all intents and purposes, of the new residence is approximately where the front wall is of the existing residence. Is that correct?
Very close, yes.
Okay, and at that plane, are we gaining height relative to street level? At that plane?
Maybe because the second level stacks over the entryway at grid line 2, and if you look at the photos, the existing entryway to the house is in a right there.
It's in a shed condition.
It's a shed roof. So if you go, see how the entryway and that little tower element is kind of at the back of the garage? That's where I'm getting that kind of proximity of where grid line 2 is, but it's more, it's, so somewhere in there at the back of the garage is where our 2-story element starts, similarly to where it starts on this photo for this house.
Okay, so maybe if I'm seeing what I think is the front door of the home, which faces west, is that the green door that we're seeing with the light sconce next to it
Yes.
in the shed element? Okay, so somewhere between maybe the right-hand jamb of that door and the wall of the 2-story portion of the existing home, that's probably somewhere around where grid line 2 is now. Does that sound right?
Yeah. And one of the sections, I think, shows a sight line of that 28 feet that we are not exceeding. If you go back to the sections, it might be more, it might help you more. See the red line?
Mhm.
That's the total height of the surveyor marked of the existing house. We took that line of sight and that height very seriously, and we did not want to exceed it. But there are different elements at different heights under that 28 feet that are different from the existing house.
Understood, and that's exactly where I'm going, Ms. Sherry, and that's what I'm trying to understand. So, okay, so I think that answers my question. I don't have any further questions at this time. I'll hold the rest for comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Board Member Klein, do you have any questions, please?
I do. Are there any existing trees to be removed?
No.
Good. Okay. That's my only question. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Board Member Motisha, any questions, please? You're muted, Joe.
There you go. The pool is on compacted fill, correct?
Yes, except for we're still designing the pool equipment area, which we want it to be accessed from the west side because there's going to be an area to the west of the pool where we can put the pool equipment. But yes, in answer to your question, there's nothing proposed underneath the pool itself.
And I heard somebody say that this lot goes all the way, this lot does not go all the way to Los Alturas, does it?
Yes,
It does go all the way down.
yes. It gets steeper as it goes down.
I could have sworn I saw when I was looking at my, I forgot what it's called. The thing I look up on my computer shows the site plan maps. I thought there was a building below this lot. I guess I'm mistaken. Okay, this goes all the way down. Very good. Okay, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Ziegler, are you able to be heard? Doesn't look like it. Jonathan, we got to get your audio work fixed because it's, uh-oh, I heard something.
You need to press some more buttons.
Jonathan, I'm sorry, I can't hear you, so we're going to move on. So we're going to go back to the board. And personally, I have no questions. You guys are very good with your questions, so by the time it gets to me, I've pretty much handled everything.
I had one point of clarification in regards to the
Yes, please.
fill and the calculation that Mr. Sweeney had made.
Yes.
I believe that the calculations that were shown on the title sheet, Mr. Sweeney, were that there was 2,700 cubic yards of fill anticipated. In my experience, there's about 8 cubic yards that can make it into a truck successfully, maybe 10 if you've got a big truck that they're probably not going to want to use on this street. So that's actually 342 loads.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to bring it back to the board now for comments. Board Member Sweeney, comments, please.
Yeah, I'm gonna break my comments into maybe 3 sections. The first one has to do, can we go back to the, yeah, that one's probably fine. You know, one of the findings that this board has to make, and the reason this board exists, is one of the findings we're required to make is neighborhood compatibility. And, you know, often we try to provide an applicant and an owner with the ability to build pretty much any style of house they want, be it contemporary or historical or whatever. And we're, sometimes we disagree among ourselves. And that's because in a lot of cases, we're in neighborhoods where we define a neighborhood and it has a fairly eclectic collection of architectural styles. But in this particular case on Rincon Vista, in fact, as pointed out by one or two of the public speakers, all of these homes are Spanish style roofs, with the exception of the two at the end. They're all Spanish Mediterranean, could be contemporary, could be historical, and apparently some of them have been rebuilt after fires. I don't believe that the two red standing seam metal roofs at the houses at the end of Rincon Vista would have been approved by a full board such as ours. That's why I asked when they may have been built. Sure, they were replaced in one of the fire damages. But I'm going to have a very difficult time trying to approve this project as it's being presented in the architectural style. This street is a Spanish Mediterranean street, period. And so I'm certainly not going to endorse the approval of a standing seam roof. As you know, I believe there's a continual problem on the Riviera, and that's not part of who we are as Santa Barbara. People come to Santa Barbara because of the nature of how we look at our architecture. And that's why we have a board. Many other cities don't have a board, and they reflect that particular case. Now, having said that, it's not that I dislike the architectural approach. I think the general configuration, et cetera, is probably acceptable. We can talk a bit about whether it's been dropped down the hillside enough or not, and I can get to that in a moment. But I think you might get some better clues or cues to follow from someone like Cliff May, and I'm going to show this book that I have in my library as an architect. And Cliff May, in his early career, well before he produced the homes post-World War II that we're aware of, he did some fairly historical, contextual pieces of architecture that combined the Adobe Spanish wall work with traditional window fenestrations and more than that siding, which, based on what I can see of these drawings, some of that's been introduced. And I did a home several years ago up in Paso Robles where the clients were Disney clients, and they wanted a home that reflected a historical, brand new home, an historical story. And so we did a home combined of Spanish Adobe finishes and board and bath, and it produced hard to see sketches that approach. And I think that one could take what you want to do here and come up with a solution that's not quite where you are today, but could be closer to what you want without jeopardizing your floor plan or the general size of the home, but make it much more compatible with the streetscape. So I'm going to request that when the applicant returns, they give us some additional site sections so that we really understand the relationship of the front door entry and the road, and then some real clear clarifications on the grading. Generally, we try to have applicants try to look at how to do cut and fill that evens out. And yes, there are some cases where that's just not possible, but to minimize the amount of truckloads that are going to have to leave this site to deal with that. Thank you, Ms. Koss, for correcting my mathematics. and also, you know, the amount of stuff that's going to go to landfill. So that brings me to my second or third point is construction. And one of the things the neighborhood should know and the applicant should know is that this board unfortunately does not have the purview to make any determinations about how construction occurs on this site, including construction traffic, parking, noise, etc. That is not something that the city council gave authority to this board to deal with. That is strictly with the building department. However, I've inquired about this in the past, and we as a board in our motion for approval at whatever point we do that, can make an official request to the building department to make sure that they include language in their documents that it on the roof, that carpools be encouraged, because as you know, every workman on a construction site has to have their own pickup. And they also will have something to say about the number of truckloads that enter and leave a site. So in this case, this is pretty important. We approved another smaller project for a garage, etc., that's under construction right now, right at the corner of Rincon Vista. It's the home right at the corner of Rincon Vista and Las Alturas. That's under construction right now. If you go there, you'll see they're grading. So, you know, if you have at least one more construction on this project, maybe that'll be done by the time this home gets started. But, you know, all along the Riviera, this is a tremendous problem. On any one given day, there could be 14 to 20 trucks out on a street, pickups, and that's aside from delivery trucks and dump trucks and tractors and bulldozers and cranes and all those other kinds of things that are required to build these sorts of residences. So I think we should keep that in mind when we get to the point where we need to make a motion for this project. And then finally, I think that landscaping is going to be a very important component of what this building will look like, particularly on the city side, the part we see as citizens. You know, part of our board's findings is we do have purview over view from public right-of-ways and the general view sheds of what these buildings look like, particularly as we see them from the bigger parts of the city as we look at the Riviera. So being able to look at these homes and determine whether or not they're going to have a detrimental impact to the general fabric of the Riviera is very important. That's why the standing seam roof is, in my view, a detriment. And also large retaining walls holding swimming pools or other major landscape elements in play, louvered trellises, etc. All those have an effect as one looks at these homes from below on Las Alturas, down on Milpa Street, etc. All these homes can be seen from many points throughout the city, and part of the reason that this board exists is that the city of Santa Barbara and its community cherish the kind of views that we have into the Riviera. And so every home we look at will have an impact on the fabric of the view as it's stitched together over the years as we continue to approve much larger homes on these very small lots. And then finally, to talk about the easement issues for garages and setbacks, et cetera. One of the challenges we all have, including the applicant, is that when the downzoning occurred in the 1970s, the city put in setback distances, et cetera. But I think in hindsight, they never paid attention to the topography of the city of Santa Barbara. They did it as if it were a flat city on a flat grid, and didn't realize that all these roads up on the Riviera that were given 25-foot and 30-foot setbacks didn't make any sense. And so now today we're having to deal with that, and owners are having to to move forward and ask for modifications because that was never paid attention to. Anyway, those are my comments at this point. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Colas, do you have any comments, please?
Yeah, I do. I'll try to keep them brief. I agree with Mr. Sweeney's comment about the general character of this project as it relates to the neighborhood. It feels too clean, too contemporary, very white, especially for, and I'm talking about in color, from down below. It's just, I would be concerned about seeing that from down below. I know we're just looking at preliminary renderings here, but if this is the color palette that is being pursued, I think it's too light. I appreciate what is trying to be done in terms of the entry and not having a driveway that swoops down or entrance that you have to step down to. But I think that generally speaking, when you're on the Riviera, oftentimes homes that are on the downhill side of a street, like if you're driving on APS, the downhill side, those are typically kept to about a story or a story and a half relative to the street, so that the uphill neighbor across the street still retains their views. And while the overall height of this may be remaining the same, it feels very different from the street than the existing home because, number one, a gable has been introduced to the garage, and which is running towards the street, perpendicular to the street, rather than the shed running to the street. And also because you don't have the shed element that currently captures and sort of breaks down the massing towards the street. So I'm concerned about how tall this feels relative to the existing home from the street. So to that end, I would request that when the applicant returns, that on their site section 2, that they provide us with a dashed silhouette of the existing residence so that we can understand how that relates from a massing standpoint to the proposed project. I appreciate the fact the project on the south side is stepped down, and I do think if that's landscaped properly, that will help break it down in terms of what people would see from the city. So I think that's a plus for the project. I think Mr. Sweeney's idea of looking at sort of this historical hybrid approach between the ranch house and a hacienda style architecture might be a good place to go. And I also would not support the standing seam roof. Those are my comments.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have comments, please?
Yes, I would say that I think that the style and materials are very high quality, and I do find them aesthetically favorable. I like the architecture and the design. Compromise could be possibly adding some sandstone to the building. I also appreciate the applicant's contact with the neighbors. I am concerned about the amount of fill. So if there is any way, I know there's constraints on the site, but if there's any way to work more with the topography, I would support that. And and I'm looking forward to a landscape plan as well.
All right, thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, I like the I like the fact that the house is sitting back. It makes that street seem, even though the garage is the northeast corner side of the garage is right on the street. Now it sets it back and says, hey, we have a house that sets back from the street rather than the house that is existing now that sits right on the street or pretty close to the street. It makes it look like right on the street. I think I agree with Board Member Klein that we could add some strength to the house, to put some sandstone to it, to give it some, it's for the neighborhood, it's too modern, too modern. And I think we could add some texture to the walls to give it some depth and some weight to make it fit into the neighborhood a lot more. I don't think changing, I think the massing of the house is nice. Again, I can't, I fluctuate back and forth whether I want to support the standing seam roof. In some of the places that I've supported before, it didn't really change the image of the neighborhood. I think this changes the total image of the neighborhood, and I don't think I can support the standing seam roof. But the massing and the size, bulk, and scale of the house is appropriate to me, and I think it fits our guidelines. Yeah, that's all my comments at this point. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Ziegler, can we hear you? All right, so we've got to have to get this addressed. I mean, this is a serious issue. It's so Mr. Ziegler, we've got to get you some kind of technical ability to speak and hear us.
I don't think he's aware that we're not hearing him. He needs to be more aggressive about it. Jonathan, do you know that we cannot hear you? Then we need to hear you.
Is it possible for him to call in versus using his audio on the computer?
It is.
Board Member Colossus, we have had more success with that, and we have been working with him behind the scenes today to try and get that up and running. Board Member Ziegler, if you want to try to switch, your audio right now is on the computer. If you want to try and switch it back to the phone, I will send you that pin again. Okay, I just sent the pin number again. Any luck?
He's not aware that you're talking to him.
Well, I don't know what else to do at this point. This is, we have been working with him today since we started, so you might want to.
All right.
Chair Miller.
Okay, I'm going to move on for the sake of time. So my comments are the design and style of the house is very good. I like it. However, I don't think it's appropriate for this neighborhood. The existing home that's there is charming. You know, it's classic Santa Barbara. It's got the swoopy roofs and the two-piece mission tile and the funny little windows. And, you know, it's quite a eclectic thing, but I understand that the clients, you know, the place has fallen down the hill and it's going to be costly to replace it. And then there's also this conflict of lifestyle. Those homes tend to be chopped up little rooms. There usually was places for the servants and the hired help, and you know, it was a very segregated lifestyle. Modern homes are very open, you know, very fluid. So there's always this struggle to try to make older homes reflect current lifestyles. I'm a little concerned about I think there's a lot of grading occurring that I don't think, I think it's a little too aggressive for this neighborhood. So I think there's should be some serious study in terms of the grading so that there's a lot less grading happening and that this building is a little more sympathetic to the existing slope. So I'm a little, like I said, Santa Barbara, as Fred said, is historically Spanish colonial, Andalusian, with the tile roofs. And so there's a bias. And of course we do approve modern homes. But I get really kind of sad when I see we lose homes and it's replaced with something that doesn't reflect the legacy of Santa Barbara. So I'd love to see this house being designed with that in mind, that this is, this is Santa Barbara. This is not Santa Monica or Irvine or Malibu. And, you know, if I was an architect in Solvang, I would design what Solvang wants. And if I was an architect in Palm Springs, I'd love to do mid-century modern. But Santa Barbara, we do the Mediterranean Spanish. And so, and in this particular neighborhood where it's pretty well pronounced, and also you see it from the city, this current style and massing, I can't support at this time. So those are my only comments. And with that being said, we need a motion. So if someone has a motion, and their comments only, and the client also requested certain variances, if you want to include that in your comments.
I'll take a stab, and
Okay,
if it needs to be amended, I'm amenable to amending.
okay,
The board would like to see the applicant return and consider the following items: that the project be, they consider redesign or changing the relative, I'll call it, elevation of the home to reduce grading in a manner that is more sympathetic to the topography of the neighborhood. The board is not in favor of the proposed standing seam roof. The board would like to request that the applicant return with a site section that shows the existing massing relative to the proposed project, that the applicant provide a preliminary landscape plan. The board recommends that the applicant consider modifying the nature or style of the home to be more reflective of Santa Barbara's Spanish colonial heritage and or a hybrid approach to a farmhouse hacienda style. And I'll leave it at that.
thank you. Very good. Do we have a second,
Mr.
please?
Chair, I will second that with a couple of few proposed amendments to your motion.
Yes,
That you include the language in there, Ms. Kloss, that you talked about having the section superimposed with the existing section of the existing home, so we can see where the existing floor levels are in relationship to the new proposed floor levels. I think that was one thing you asked for. That we get clearly identified the trash area that we will have to make a minor zoning decision on, and also a design section and elevation design of the proposed pilasters by the driveway that we will also be required to make a decision on, and anything else that needs to be documented that either requires a modification, which requires our comments to the staff hearing officer, and any modifications that require our actions be documented on the drawings the next time the applicant returns. I think if we could add that into the motion, then I think we've got everything that should the applicant be able to respond to.
with that, Leslie?
Yes,
You accept it?
that's acceptable to me to add those comments to the motion.
All right, thank you. May I have a roll? Before we get a roll call, Mary, could you please say what the motion is? Fred's additions was quite established, or I'd like to hear what it is.
Sure, I can go ahead and read it back. So the motion is to continue the project with the following comments. Number one, the project shall be redesigned or change the relative elevation of the home in order to reduce the grading in a manner sympathetic to the topography. Number two, the board is not in favor of the standing seam roof. The board would like to request the applicant to return with a site section showing the existing massing relative to the proposed project. sections will superimpose on the existing sections. Number 3, the applicant shall provide a preliminary landscape plan. Number 4, the board recommends the applicant consider modifying the nature or style of the home to be more reflective of Spanish colonial heritage and or take the approach of a farmhouse hacienda style. Number 5, identify the trash areas that the board will need to make minor zoning exception decisions on. 6, provide design sections and elevation design of the pilasters by the driveway. And number 7, document anything related to the modifications that the staff hearing officer and the SFDB will need to make comments on.
All right, thank you. Just a quick comment. I think part of the style of the house, it was a hybrid farmhouse ranch style was the word was used. Is that correct? Did you want to keep that in there, Leslie? Or
Yeah, I
Brett?
think so. I think I understand what Mr. Sweeney was alluding to. I'm familiar with sort of that genre of architecture, the Cliff Maze sort of hacienda bleeding into sort of the board and bat ranch house style, and I think that provides some opportunities for them here.
Great, thank you. So did you understand? Yes, Fred.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Just further comment before we vote. And Ms. Burkhardt may be listening or on the line. It's hard to tell with the Zoom who's here and who isn't here. One of the things, I don't think it has to be part of our motion, but I don't know if you're all aware that there is a process at the city's ordinance committee that was scheduled, and I didn't go to the meeting this week, but there's an ordinance traveling through the process that has something to do with the ABR and the Single Family Design Board about modifying how we award project design approval. And you know, our practice to this point has been telling applicants whether or not, after they've had these initial introduction meetings, whether or not we're going to be in a position to give them project design approval or not at the subsequent meeting. I don't know that we're on this particular project, we're ready to do that yet, but I don't know whether that practice is going to get implemented because of this ordinance. I don't know. We haven't had any information to make us aware that this ordinance thing is going through the process now. So I don't know, Ms. Burkhardt, do we need to worry about that at this point? Is our motion sufficient?
Yes, the motion is sufficient. I'll let Ms. Unsueta answer the question.
Mr. Chair and board members, with respect to, I believe, the ordinance, the proposed ordinances that that board member or Vice Chair Sweeney is speaking about, it has to do with the findings that are made at the Architecture Board of Review and the Historic Landmarks Commission. Right now, the HLC and the ABR make project compatibility analysis as opposed to project compatibility findings. So we're just changing the terminology to that, and also amending one of the findings so that they don't have to make a finding that indicate that the project is compliant with the city charter and the general plan. In other words, that the board doesn't have to make those because those are being made by staff. But with respect to what is going forward with respect to the single family design board and actually all the design boards is a provision with, and really we shouldn't be speaking about it too much here, but I'm just gonna give you a synopsis, is including a new procedure for the appeals. If there's an appeal, that the information that is presented to your board, for example, is the same information that's going to be presented at council. And that's what it's clarifying. And that's what affects your board.
So, Ms. Unsueta, I would assume at some point you'll come back and maybe agendize that so we can understand a little bit more about the details. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. We're running a little behind, so let's get a roll call, please.
All right, we have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Board Member Colossus,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler. All right, and for the record, Mr. Ziegler's thumbs up is a sign of approval, so the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. And there, oh, I forgot, they're coming back to the full board, right? Was that included in the motion?
I did not specifically state full board, but that was the intent, Chair Miller.
Okay, so can,
As a seconder, I agree.
okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 2. We're about 45 minutes behind, so hopefully the clients are here. 459 La Marina Drive. This is a new item, so I'm going to read it into the record. This is for concept review. Proposal for 119 square foot addition to the first story. The construction of a new 1,025 square foot second story to an existing 1,419 square foot single story residence. The project also includes a new detached storage shed and a new trash enclosure. A minor zoning exception is requested to allow the proposed trash enclosure to be located in the front yard. No final appealable action will take place at this hearing. Project requires neighborhood preservation findings in Hillside Design District and slope lot findings. Hello, Mr. Oshner.
Good afternoon.
So could you please present your project? Yes, Barbara, sorry.
Yes, I certainly can keep it brief. I know you're behind.
Well, I think, Ms. Burkhardt, did you have something you needed to say? Sorry.
Real quickly, I just wanted to let the board know this application, similar to the item before it, the application for this project has been through one round of completeness review and was deemed incomplete. So is before you today for comments to help them develop the design as they work towards application completeness.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Tom, you have the floor.
Okay, great. So what we've got here is property on the portion of La Marina. It crosses Cliff Drive and it goes up and it peters out into a cul-de-sac. And this property is on the downhill side of where it turns into that cul-de-sac. So it sits well below. It is currently there's an existing 1,900 square foot, one story, a 50s-ish ranch house, and it sits well below the street. It's that area's got some expansive soil issues, and I'll expand on that a little bit later. It is 75. We're proposing 75% of the FAR. I think we can move to the next slide. I think it should be let's go to the survey. There's the survey. So I do have some photos we should probably jump into after this survey here. So I'm going to explain it. So as you can see, the top of the screen there is La Marina, and it slopes down drastically to this site was built on a bit of fill, and it is expansive. We've got a steep driveway. The garage is on the west side there, as you see it. The right-hand side of the house was reinforced with canes about 5 years ago for its current one-story condition. So we're trying to keep the second-story addition to the west. The east side was reinforced. And then we've got, we're trying to keep the existing footprint, and expansion of the existing footprint will be to the north side, to the uphill side. Maybe we should jump into some photos now, if we have them. I think that would be helpful. Okay, so I can probably describe the photos as we get into them. So it should be, everyone just think of the house being down and the hillside being up. So here we are, we're looking from the driveway back across La Marina to the homes on the other side of upper part of La Marina. So you can see how the terrain goes up from this point. And then we're about ready to walk down the driveway here to the property. Next slide. And then here we're looking down now from that driveway and the existing house. It's an 8-foot plate, flat ceiling home. And it's got a raised foundation with a slab on grade garage. Next slide. And so as we pan to the west here, you can see that's where the garage is on the west side. The driveway drops down steep. We have no place for the trash. As you can see, the trash is down there against the neighbor's retaining wall. So we want to tuck it up into the hillside, which would be in the front yard on the driveway to the right, and it'll show up on the site plan. But there's the neighbor's home to the west. This owner is in a very good relationship with his neighbors, and it's high priority for him to maintain that. So we're here for conceptual, and we're interested in your comments as well as all the comments of the neighbors. I do understand the comments of all the neighbors, and I'm going to address those a bit in this presentation, and that should speed things up when you get the comments from them and have to read them. Next slide, please. So this is again looking across the street up, kind of a repetitive one. We can go by this quickly. I'm going to keep going here. And this is, okay, so this is below the house. There's a slope below the house. There's two neighbors below the house here that are concerned about the drainage situation. That's a drainage V-ditch there that's actually reinforced with caissons as well. And we are looking to take that slope right there and turn it into a little bit of a terrace yard as we develop these plans. Next slide, please. And this is looking right east across that slope below the house. You can see the deck of the house is up to the left, and we're going, that needs to be reinforced and constructed footings as well. But this is the sloping south side of our property. Next slide. And here again, this looks back up at the existing condition there. Next slide. And then this is the south side of the residence itself. And in front of the existing house and go 2 stories above this, we're looking about a 1,100 square foot addition to an existing 1,900 square foot house, 75% FAR. Next slide, please. And then this is the driveway. The neighboring property is about 3 feet up from this, and the garage would stay as it is. And that's where we put the master bedroom above the garage. Next slide. And this is the front yard. You can see how the slope comes down from La Marina. The proposed roof of the second story would be about at the elevation of La Marina up there. So we've got a steep driveway, and this would still be the entry here to the house. Next slide, please. And that's looking up the driveway. So the trash would be located in that embankment on the left side of the photo, as you can see that. And then next slide, please. And just looking down the driveway, next slide. And then I'm repeating, so we can probably move back to the proposed site plan. I think that would be good. Okay, proposed site plan, there we go. So, we'll start with the storage shed on the lower left. Don't comment on that. I think that could be a problem with the neighbor, so we're going to take that from the program. So what we're looking to do then is, you can see the existing footprint. The second story is the portion to the left of the building, the west side. That's what we're looking to build above the east side. Has got some previous foundation improvements. The idea is to pretty much maintain the existing terrace as it is. We'd like to extend balconies over that terrace for sun control and for deck space. We'd like to terrace a bit of the existing open yard space down there. We'll show that in the sections. Next slide, please. And if we zoom in on this site section, this should give some clarity to the existing terrain. So we've got on the very top of the right here where it says property line, that's street level, and then it comes down and this cuts through sort of the winding driveway. And then they do have steps that come all the way down to the front door. So we have an existing 8-foot plate, which we'd retain over to the portion of the home that stays where we're not building above. And then we would go to a 9-foot ceiling over the living room space and the garage. And then the second floor would be a 9-foot plate as well. We're utilizing the volume of the roof. The roof would be a 3 and 12, about as low as we can go. And the proposed building height would be just under 24 feet from existing grade, which puts us about at the street level. And as you can see on the left side of this site section, how we're proposing to do some terracing, which should also allow us the ability to capture and better handle the rainwater and deal with the tier 3 that we've got in front of us here. So next slide, please. And so this is the demolition plan, the right-hand side. The foundation will stay, the walls, the roof structure will come off for trusses, but the left side of it will be reframed. Next slide, please. And this is the proposed plan. So we've got existing garage. The central portion of the house is the open living space. And we're keeping the bedrooms on the east side, on the right side of the page. So the house does get expanded where the stairwell is and the front entry a bit. And so I think we're adding about a little over 100 square feet to the existing footprint of the house. Next slide. And the second floor features a master suite on the west side, the left side of the screen. And then there's an open family room that opens to a covered deck in the center core. And then there's a guest bedroom on the right-hand side of the layout. And then further to the right is the one-story portion that we're keeping mostly as is. Next slide. And then we can go through these. These are just ceiling plans. We don't, I think, go through these next 2 slides. Then there's some sections. Really, there's the roof plan. Yeah, I can go back and answer questions on this. Let's just go to the elevations. That'd be the last. So the elevations, so the idea is to just create a bit of a contemporary feeling of the ranch house. This would feature the south-facing balconies. We're proposing swagged guardrails, dark metal windows, still retain plaster. The idea is to introduce planting to the south side and raise the grade so that we would eliminate guardrails from that main terrace. And so that would be the purpose of some of the terracing. But it would, just under 24 feet in height, 75 foot, 75% FAR. So I think I'm happy to answer questions. That should do it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Offner. Did we have any public comment?
Thank you, Chair Miller. If you are attending by webinar and would like to comment on this item, please follow the directions on screen and raise your hand by clicking the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel, which indicates that you wish to speak. While we wait for hands, Mary, did we receive any written correspondence for this item?
Thank you, Barbara. We did receive written correspondence for this item, and it was distributed to the board prior to this hearing.
Thank you, Mary. Chair Miller, there are no hands raised, so I will hand it back to you for questions.
All right, thank you very much. Board Member Sweeney, do you have questions, please?
Oops, come on, thank you. Yeah, just a couple. The size of the new terrace versus the square footage of the new terrace versus the old deck square footage, what was that? Do we know, more or less?
So the existing main level terrace gets bulged out with that semicircular shape as shown on the site plan. So that would be the increase. I'm guessing.
So it's that semicircle. or half circle?
It's that semicircle, yes. And that would,
Okay.
yeah, that's centered on the main living space. Yeah, so you
Okay.
can see, yeah.
And then can we go to, you had a photograph looking down the driveway towards the garage, and then it shows the ocean in the back. Yeah. So as best I can tell, based on what you're presenting, the second floor, this new proposed second floor, and its new 3 and 12 pitch roof would probably come up to the tree line, where the tree line in the far distance meets the blue of the water.
Yes, so I've got another photo that I've kind of extrapolated, I think where you're going, Fred, from a letter from the neighbors. And if we have that, if staff has that, what I've done is so this is, I've gone out there. We don't have story poles up yet. We fully intend to do them because we want to make sure that the neighbors are comfortable with what we're doing here. But that's
the line. Okay.
yeah, that's where my best guess, and that'll be confirmed when
Public commenter, I was just wanting to check with you if we can reopen public comment.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so I'd like to call up Edward Finnegan. Going to unmute you. Let's see, I think I need to send you, I just sent you an unmute request. Great, your mic is live. You have 2 minutes to speak. I'm experiencing some audio visual freezes. I don't know if that's happening to anyone else.
There's a couple times it happened with Fred speaking.
Okay,
I don't
Mr.
see anybody. I cannot see anybody.
Hear anybody?
Oh, boy.
Hopefully it does not continue. Mr. Finnegan, your mic is live. If you would like to make your comment, you have 2 minutes to speak whenever you're ready. Well, I'm sorry, Chair Miller, I will let you continue. I'm not getting response.
I look forward to the day when we're all vaccinated and we can go back to live meetings.
Thank you.
All right, so going back to the board, Board Member Kalas, do you have any questions? Hopefully we can hear you.
I don't have any questions. I went out and did a site visit today. I'm familiar with the property. I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any questions?
I also do not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any questions?
My only questions are basically landscape. I hope the two trees, the tree to the west and the tree to the east remain. They are much higher than the second, looks like higher than the second floor roof would be of the new proposal. Are the trees going to remain? Yes?
yes.
Okay, very good. That's all I have. No other questions.
All right, thank you. Board Member Ziegler. Man of mystery. Okay, we can't hear you. The only, you brought up the issue that you're going to put up story poles. I guess my only question is if you had an outline of how the existing house looked with relation to the new house, but it seems like you're going to address that in the future. So I'll bring it back to the board for comments. Board Member Sweeney, do you have any comments, please?
No, I think that the project is being presented with a few things in the landscape plan coming is supportable. One of the things just to share with the public who's watching is that I too was out at the site, and one would have to have a 5-story addition or 3-story addition on top of this thing, even get above the street and to even start to preclude a view corridor. And just a reminder, we're not obligated to guarantee views from any private home, window, terrace, etc. Our purview is over general public view corridors or areas from the public right of way or from the general city as we look at various homes throughout Santa Barbara. So, but I'm pretty well convinced that given this modest 2nd-story addition, it's not going to inhibit anybody's view even from the sidewalk. So that's my comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Colas, do you have any comments, please?
I have no concerns about this project relative to views. I do want to acknowledge that we received correspondence from 3 neighbors and that I did read the correspondence from all 3 of the neighbors. And I think that the project that is before us really should not cause any trepidation on their part. I think that they will still have amazing ocean and shoreline views.
They are amazing. I was there too. Pretty spectacular. Board Member Klein, do you have any comments, please?
I also think the design is great, improves the site. Don't think it'll hinder views. And I think that doing the terracing stormwater planters also improve the site as well.
All right.
That's all.
Oh, thank you. Board Member Motisha, comments, please.
No, I agree with everything that everybody has said previous to me. Great design. I don't think it's going to hinder the views of anybody on La Marina because it sits down very low. I think it follows our guidelines very close. What is the roof covering? Just quick.
The roof covering is, well, metal roof would be what we'd be looking for, but I know on the Hillside District, you may not like that. So I think that's a good question, Joe. What would your board feel about metal roofing?
Are you stating standing seam or what?
A dark colored, yeah, like a deep colored metal roof.
I think standing seam would be very questionable here.
Yeah.
Very questionable.
Mr. Chair, this is Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Can I chime in?
Yes.
I'm usually the one on the standing seam. I think Joe, this may be a neighborhood where we might be able to deal with it. There are, Mr. Oshner knows because he's designed 3 or 4 buildings on the street above this street, further up the hill. And there are some single-story homes up there that have standing seam roofs that you see from the harbor and the city. This is a different kind of area than the Riviera. So it might be one we might want to think about. Mr. Oshner, you might, if your client wants to pursue that, you might share with us some views taken from Cliff Drive, where La Marina intersects. When I was out there, I stopped, got out, walked around to make sure I could see this house or couldn't see this house from that intersection. You do see the top of it, and certainly you will see the second floor when it's added. So, I think it's something in this particular case we probably could talk about. I'm not totally set one way or the other just yet. One thing to add in comments that Ms. Colas brought up is the residents that wrote letters about the concern of the footings and foundations, as Mr. Oshner pointed out. There's caissons, there's a whole structural network that will have to be looked at, and so I'm not concerned that that won't be addressed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So to chime in,
Chair Miller, let me say one thing.
Yes.
The reason I brought that up is because the roof was basically ignored right here, and I wanted to get a response for a roof that's basically ignored. Excuse me one second.
Okay, so I get that, and I was going to ask about the roof material, so I'm going to chime in. I think a slate type roof or a standard what do they call it? Asphalt shingles. I would be uncomfortable with a standing metal seam roof. I think a cool, there's some fake slate or real slate roofs would look really neat, which is kind of what you have on your elevation. I personally would prefer that rather than the standing metal seam. Just to give you my feedback.
I will go out back out again and drive around the neighborhood. It didn't dawn on me at the time this morning when I was up there looking at the area. I am inclined to be swayed one way or the other based on the neighborhood compatibility and the styles of the house in that area. And I understand that, yes, this is different than the previous project we just looked at. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Botisha. Yeah, that was my only comment, was what the roof material was. And I made my comment about that. So, Mr. Ziegler, dear Jonathan, we cannot hear you. Okay, well, I'm sorry this is happening. So we can't hear from you. So with that, I'd like someone to entertain a motion. They're here for comments only. No appealable action will take place at this hearing. It will require preservation findings in hillside district and slope lot findings. Who would like to entertain a motion, please?
I'll try.
Okay, thank you.
Make a motion that the project appears to be that the consensus of the boards that the project is generally compatible with the neighborhood in terms of size, bulk, and scale. That it does not appear that it will affect any views in a deleterious manner. The board would like to see the project return to the full board with additional landscaping information, finishes, colors, and specifically request that the roof material be addressed. It appears that the consensus of the board is that there would be a preference for a slate or an asphalt shingle as opposed to a standing seam metal roof.
All right, thank you. Do I have a second, please?
Mr. Chair, oh, I'm sorry.
Me too, Fred.
Joe, go ahead, second it.
I second it.
Okay, can we go to discussion?
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Are we prepared as a board? This is a question to the maker of the motion and the seconder. Are we comfortable to let this applicant know that we may be in the position to give a project design approval at its next appearance?
I'm comfortable with that as the maker of the motion.
And I am comfortable as the second.
Okay, thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. This is Mary. I'll go ahead and take the roll call vote. You have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Board Member Koloff,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler. All right, Board Member Ziegler's thumbs up signals an approval for the record, and the motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So
Thank you very
guys,
much.
I'm gonna have a serious accident. If I don't, we take a 5-minute break because I need to, my bladder's call is giving me a call here. So can we take a 5-minute break real quick? What is the time? I don't have time in front of me.
5:14.
Okay, so let's get back at 5:19, 5:20. Okay, thank you. Let's take a 5-minute break. Going to reconvene the Single Family Design Board. Moving on to item number 3. This is a new item for concept review. I will read it into the record. Proposal for a 2,087 square foot addition to a main floor and basement of the existing 2,654 square foot 2-story single family residence. Project includes the removal of an existing 639 square foot exterior deck to be replaced with a new 1,480 square foot deck. The proposed total of 4,476 square feet on the 29,958 square foot lot is 95% of the maximum guideline floor to lot area ratio. Staff hearing officer review of a modification is required to follow a portion of the proposed addition, an exterior deck and stairs to encroach into the required 30-foot secondary front setback. No appealable action will be taken at this hearing. Project requires neighborhood preservation findings and hillside findings. Welcome, Mr. McLeod.
Chair Miller, before he
Yes.
begins, I have to
Do we have any
recuse-
public
I have to
comment?
recu-
Sorry.
Chair Miller, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have to recuse myself because I'm part of the applicant team.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was Board Member Klein. Thank you.
And board,
I see.
Board Miller, may I make a quick introduction as well? Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Burkhardt, please.
This project is in a bit of a unique situation. I just wanted to make you aware of. The application was submitted before our new process took place, so it has not been reviewed for completeness. However, it was originally agendized for concept review at the Historic Landmarks Commission. The existing residence was on the city's list of potential landmarks. However, it has since been removed. So it is here before you today for concept review as they work on their application. And with that, I will hand it over to the applicant for their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McLeod, you have 15 minutes to present your project.
Thank you very much. Thank you. As you have become aware, we went to HLC first, so we've spent quite a lot of time working through the process here. So thank you for taking the time to review it today. 925 Jimena Road, it's a very tight triangular site. We actually have 2 front yard setbacks and a side yard setback. So if we can move to the site plan, we can start there. Perfect. So as you can see, it's a 23,000 square foot lot. The 30-foot front setback applies to both sides of a triangle. So what we're dealing with is a very challenging site that allows only 37% of a well over a half-acre site to be buildable. The existing home as it stands today is a very well-designed home. Bedrooms are to the east, orientation for morning light. Living is to the west and south. So the basic layout of the home is really effective. So we wanted to keep the nature of the home true to its original design, while still accommodating a modernization for the pieces that are lacking in the overall building. So what we can see here to the south elevation, if we zoom in, we've labeled the 3 areas to the south elevation that we'll be focusing on. We have A and C, which is in addition to the building. B and 1 and 2 are deck enlargements that encroach into this front yard setback. Based on this drawing that you're seeing right now, we are still approximately 26 to 27 feet away from the edge of the road. And we're well down, the road is well down underneath us. So as we kind of work our way towards the corner, if we can pan towards the turnout. the grade comes up and we move around to the north side of the property. So the idea was to keep the addition to the west, a small master bedroom addition to the east, and kind of keep the drive entry true to the original design. So if we can go to the original home, we can move on to the next sheet. So as the house sits today, it's a California ranch, and like we've said, it went to HLC, and they made the finding that there's no historic nature to the home as it stands today. The existing home is a two-story home. We have a small basement area down below, which can be seen in the photograph to the right-hand side, and to the existing south elevation photograph above it if we want to zoom in on that. So the proposed addition, the master bedroom addition, is to the right-hand side of the building, and to the in the area around the existing deck is the new dining kitchen area, which we'll get to here in a minute. The idea was to keep the ridge line as close to the original as possible and keep some of the building elements like the fireplace. And at this stage, we're looking at doing a stone base. Right now, it's a existing brick base to the building. If we go to the next sheet. Can we go back one, please? So we can see the existing layout of the existing home, existing elevations. Very simple entry. Like I said and articulated, very well laid out with bedrooms to the east, garage catching the downhill slope, but very small dining, living, and kitchen area that's focused to the north, not to the south in the view and the light. Next view, please. Next, yeah, perfect. So we'll start at the base. Actually, let's come back. Let's move to the next slide before we come to the basement. So the dashed, if we zoom in, the dashed line is the existing footprint of the building. You can see where we're adding the master bathroom and master bedroom. That will be the encroachment into that setback to the east and the right-hand side of the home. We've kept the main entry and living and just enlarged the living area where we have a small encroachment on the living room and that small deck to the right-hand side into that setback. And then as we move through, we've reorientated the kitchen and family dining to serve as a great room overlooking the new outdoor dining area. If we then go down to the basement. So as we come down, we have enlarged the basement slightly with some storage areas, a small bedroom, secondary bedroom, a gym and workout space, and mechanical rooms to serve the entire home. Next slide. So elevationally from the north elevation, the form of the building is actually very similar to the original. We've actually articulated the entry element, which is that eyebrow piece around the garage and the existing bedrooms, but kept the entry, the existing entry on axes of where it is. We've looked at modifying the laundry to help reinforce the sense of entry in the drive court, and the small master bedroom and bathroom can be seen on the left-hand side. Some of the challenges that we've been working through is articulation of the existing roof form, because the home had a really large 4 and 12 pitched roof that encompassed the entire volume. Once we started to move that volume towards the south, slightly, that massing didn't work as well. So we've then started to articulate the form into slightly smaller blocks from the south. So when we're looking at the north side, we'll be looking down from the road above. And then as we move down Jimeno, we'll be looking up at the building. which can be seen in that south elevation as we work our way through. We've got very limited grading, and we have actually very good soils up here. So there won't be a lot of grading associated with the project. Next slide. So the south elevation has the majority of the work associated with, looked at the main living element around the fireplace, dead center of the screen right here, and then helping that form balance out, looking at the way that the master bedroom is articulated as a smaller version to break up the massing. And then to the left-hand side, we have the outdoor living and the deck area associated with it. And then the east elevation is the master bedroom and master bathroom addition. All this roof form is below the existing roof as it stands today. So then from a material standpoint, we're going to be looking at moving from the existing brick base and going with a tight cut sandstone that's going to be tied into the landscape palette, so that the landscape palette kind of bleeds into the base of the building. And then we'll be looking at doing a vertical wood siding and probably a light steel window system. And then, as I've heard from the panel today, roofing is going to be a big one. We were looking at going with a standing seam, but if that's supportable, we'd appreciate that. And otherwise, we'd be working with you on some other material options. So that's what I've got.
Great, thank you. Barbara, did we get any public comment?
Thank you, Chair Miller. If you are attending by webinar and would like to comment on this item, please follow the directions on screen and raise your hand by clicking the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel. While we wait for hands, Mary, did we receive any written correspondence for this item?
Thank you, Barbara and Chair Miller. The owners did send in a letter, but no public correspondence has been received. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. There are no hands raised, so Chair Miller, I will hand it back to you for questions.
All right, thank you. Board Member Sweeney, do you have any questions, please?
Yes, I have several, but one comment to begin with. Mr. McLord, your clients can speak on their behalf during your 15-minute presentation. So if they want to speak the next time you appear, that's perfectly acceptable.
Thank you.
Getting to my question. So you mentioned that there's very little grading going on in your proposed project. However, when I was out at the site, I see it up. I see a lot of work. Site is that going on? Is a permitted separate permit?
Fred, can you say that again? You went in and out, the stupid internet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was out at the site. There's a construction fence out there. There appears to be a lot of work going in the landscape area. Is that grading? Is that landscaping? Is that a separate permit? Do we know what's going on?
They're putting in the landscape, working with the landscape architect. There's no grading associated with the work that's going on out there. They're just working around the existing grade. They're starting to establish some of the landscape palette earlier than usual, but none of it is associated with any grading.
Okay, do they understand that landscaping has to be reviewed by this board?
They do.
Okay, so we would expect that not to be being installed at this point, that has to be reviewed and be part of the permit. So perhaps you can work with staff on that issue, please.
I will indeed.
Okay, thank you. And then with regard to the FAR, I think I'm getting a notice that my web is not working. So can you still hear me?
Yeah, you're doing fine.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, sorry for the technical problem. And your application says 95%, correct? Did I read that correct for FAR?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and then can we go to your floor plan, your first floor plan? I was confused looking at the drawings earlier this week. Where are the deck locations versus interior?
So the deck, like the space that's labeled outdoor living is the proposed deck. You can see the dining room and the breakfast area, that's all enclosed. And then there's a deck that's around 600 square feet for the outdoor living space in there.
Okay, and is that a stairs or a walkway coming down?
That's a stair leading down
Okay,
to the
'cause
lower.
the stair treads aren't shown, so I kind of guessed at it. I couldn't tell whether it was a stair or not. And then is there another deck where those four little boxes are over to the right of the drawing? Is that what a deck is? That a deck?
That's a small deck over the existing addition. There was an addition done around 10 or 15 years ago, and there's a small deck to help bury that addition and a stair that leads down into the landscape.
Okay, and the little squares are furniture?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And so that's the extent of the deck areas. Am I reading that right?
There's also a deck off the den of the master bedroom. That's effectively just a stair that runs down.
Where is that?
It should be
know.
dashed. Is it dashed on?
Show me. I don't see it, but
Off the master bedroom den.
Shows no deck from this drawing.
yeah, I don't see any deck. But anyway, maybe that can get clarified next time around. Okay, and then there is no concept landscape plan at this point, correct?
Yeah, we only we have it in hand.
But you
it
don't
just
have it
wasn't
displayed for us
it
here.
wasn't ready. Yeah.
Okay, so that's not here yet. Okay. And then what I'm understanding is basically you're going to tear the whole existing house down, correct?
We're keeping the north elevation fairly intact. That existing den to the north and the master bedrooms all within the existing.
So the wood framing is going to remain for that side, correct?
Yeah, indeed.
Have you discovered whether or not you have damage? But what we find is a lot of applicants come to us and say, well, we're going to keep this part and we're going to tear that part. And then we go out to the site and find out that they just, because of circumstances at the site, the whole building is gone. So I don't want to think we're fooling ourselves, or you're fooling yourself, that you might be able to save some of this when it really has to go. And that's okay. I'm just trying to understand what the effort is here. So you did say that you're making the basement a little bit bigger than the current basement. You showed us a dash line on this plan of where the existing house is. Do you have a similar indication on your basement plan?
I believe we did. Yeah, we didn't for the existing footprint. We've dashed in the proposed new. So that back wall, Mr. Sweeney, is the bearing line of the ridge of the original house above that we're keeping. It's all a bearing line, floor bearing for what we've got going on above. So we were going to move the bearing line back to that line.
Okay. So a lot of this house is going to go to landfill once you start the work. I'm just trying to get a feel. One of the concerns we have is the amount of trucks that have to drive up and down these narrow Riviera roads.
Yes.
And then let's see. You talked about the roof material. The general color of this house appears to kind of want to be gray, natural. Cedar looks like might be cedar siding. Is that kind of where you're headed?
Yes, we are.
Okay. And then the stone pattern so that's the pattern. So it's not a traditional Santa Barbara sandstone random pattern or ashlar pattern. It's basically this one you're showing in the photograph, correct?
It's an approach that we were taking just to kind of use the color palette and the texturing and kind of modernize it a little bit while still kind of addressing it and having it be able to bleed into the landscape.
Okay, thank you. And then maybe if Mr. Bolton can go to the right of that drawing he has right there, you're showing a little detail section of the deck and yeah, right there. I was trying to understand, it was hard for me to see on my little computer your drawings. That's the downside of doing all this remotely.
Yeah.
Do you have, it looks like you had thought about having a mitered glass corner at the window wall off the main living room, or is that going to be a post or a column?
That'll be a post. I won't do a corner window there. Just structurally, it won't work as well.
Okay, all right. I just, it was I had a hard time reading it on the drawings. And then,
yeah.
Let's see. And then the driveway, I guess that's my last question. The driveway is going to get redone and some kind of new paving material, or is it going to remain as it is?
It was just redone recently, and we're working with the landscape architect on doing some pricing for either doing a replacing the existing asphalt with a concrete. But there's a big stone element that links a planter to the north entry garden that we want to have come bleed in through the entry court as a transition into the home.
Okay, and have you determined yet whether you have to be a tier 2 or tier 3 water issue?
I believe we are going to be a tier 2, but we're still waiting to confirm that.
And then while you have that drawing there, just so we're clear, the modifications that you're asking for are the ones that are clearly delineated in this drawing.
Yeah.
And what's the area crosshatched on the west or the left-hand side of this drawing? Is that also a modification? What's happening in there?
That's the 1,250 square foot open space. The hatched version to the west is the addition to the home. That's outside the 30-foot setback.
Okay, great. Thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Colas, do you have any questions, please?
Sorry, trying to unmute myself. I have a question. Could you please go back to the photo that shows the south elevation of the home? It would be the one on the upper right, I believe, in this photo. So there's a large specimen oak there. And are you intending to remove that, have the deck run around that? Do you have an arborist report relative to how that will be protected during construction? Have you considered that as of yet?
Yes, we have. We've worked with the fire department who are recommending actually taking it out because of its location to the house.
Interesting. Okay. Do you have a letter from the fire department to that effect?
We have a note. Yeah, they came out and inspected it, and then we've been working with the arborist.
Okay. And then the other question that I would ask, I guess, is if we go back to the floor plan. I can appreciate the constraint of this lot. I actually live on a lot that is constrained in this same way. I've worked on a lot that was constrained on two sides in this way. this lot is even more constrained in that your access from the north side, your driveway, creates an impossibility for you to add on to the northwest side. As you know, that's the first thing I looked at is, oh, I'd like to see the addition going on that side of the house. But after a site visit, I understand the constraints to a greater degree. So I'm a little bit more compassionate for the requested modifications than I thought I might have been when I first looked at the drawings. I would question whether there's a true necessity for the deck out on the east side of the home off of the den of the master bedroom, and whether the den is really needed. I think the rest of it I would be willing to support. I know we're getting into comments, so I'll zip it. I think, do I have any other questions? Can you tell me a little bit more about how the eaves or rakes would be working on the home? Are you imagining clipped eaves or extended eaves?
We're looking at clipping all the eaves so that that's the form cleans up fairly architectural, becomes a lot more architectural with everything clipped.
Okay, so very Sea Ranchy, Charles Moore, clipped eave, stripped down.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Those are my only questions.
Thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any questions, please? And please limit it to questions. We got to get this through.
She's recused, Brian. Just.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have questions, please?
Yes, could we look at the site plan showing where you're asking for the modifications? It would be helpful if you put the bedrooms and the decks on that plan to show it is true it is that you're adding A, B, and C, but we don't know what A, B, and C is, except we have to interpolate and go to another drawing to find out where A and B and C is, or what they are. There again, I guess the deck is number one. Is that what that is? Number one? The deck
Yes.
that, okay. You need to include that deck because it looks like that deck is in the setback.
It's labeled on the sheet that it's part of the modification request. To the
You need to have it on the drawings. And
it's to the right hand side of the drawing.
okay, well, it's not labeled. The deck off the den of the master bedroom is maybe in red, but it doesn't show what it is. Also, let's go to the basement plan. The proposed basement plan. It would be nice if you did in dash lines what the existing deck is, or the existing basement is right now. There is I count two openings to the south out of that basement. Are they, am I saying something true that there are two openings to the south out of that basement?
Yes.
And is there access around the east or west side of the house to that lower area in the back?
No.
There's not, okay. So you have one access down from the house, was that one stairway on the easterly or the westerly end of the house. So you have okay. Probably, well, that's okay. Now you have a bedroom. You could have another bedroom down there. You could have a great room. The gym could be a great room instead of a gym. That's no problem with that. Nothing against code. Could have two bathrooms down there. I'm just reading into what I see there. Yeah, I would like to have a dotted line there showing what is proposed, or no, what's existing, and then we can compare that to what you're adding to it. And it would be nice to see if that tree, that big oak tree, where the trunk of that oak tree is located. I think Board Member Colossus asked about that tree, and I think you're removing the tree to add 95 FAR, we'd have a question about that. I'm not saying that it won't go through, but we would like to see where the tree is located compared to that basement addition or the whole basement, where the tree is located.
Okay,
Sorry,
is that all your questions?
extent of my questions.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, they sound a little bit more like comments, but they are comments with a question mark after them.
Okay, yeah, we're running really late, you guys, so let's try to make everything kind of clear and succinct. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any questions, please? Can we hear you? Okay, we can't hear you, so I'm going to move on. Back to the board for comments. Board Member Sweeney, do you have comments, please?
Yes, thank you. In general, I think the architectural approach is acceptable. I'll get to the standing seam roof question in a moment. One thing we've forgotten, I think staff may have forgotten, this actually came to us before, I think with a different architect, between the time they went to the HLC and this meeting, but I could be incorrect. In general, I can't support 95% FAR for this project and this site. I think the house is too big. I think it needs to get down to 85%. I think you can get there. It's one of those ones where we often see if you could just suck in a few feet everywhere and keep all the same functions, etc., you'd get to 85% fairly quickly. So I'm not going to support something that's 95%. I will support it if it's 85%. With regards to the roof, the standing seam roof, given where this house is, I could see a corrugated roof, but not a standing seam roof. And that's just a problem on the Riviera, and this is part of that area. In general, I have the same concerns about the oak tree. I do know that I believe under the rules, if the oak tree is in the setback, you have to get permission from the tree committee. If it's in the front yard, I think you still have to get it from the tree committee. I'm not sure where that rule sits. Maybe Ms. Burkhardt can work with the applicant and get that sorted out. I am going to be interested in the landscape plan, is how it interfaces with the architecture, but I think the general approach is very acceptable. With regards to the modifications that we'll ultimately have to address when we give this a review to move on to the planning commission, the staff hearing officer, I think most of that is supportable if we can get it clearly defined where the decks are, etc. Because as I've said with other projects, when the city was down zone in the 70s, they didn't realize when they did the Riviera that 25 and 30 foot setbacks really don't make any sense on a topography that doesn't accommodate it. So I'm not too concerned about being able to approve or be supportive rather to the staff hearing officer about the easement situation. That's my comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Colas, do you have comments, please? Can't hear you.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay. I am concerned about the work that is going on site. I made the same observations as Mr. Sweeney. I believe some of the retaining walls that are being worked on may exceed the 48-inch maximum required for a permit. So I would, again, recommend them talk to staff about that. I would want to see a landscape plan. I'm interested to know how the outdoor spaces are going to be usable. I understand there's slope to this. I understand they've met their 1,250 square foot requirement, but I'd like to know how the homeowners are going to be able to enjoy their landscape. So a landscape plan, I think, is critical. I would not be supportive of the removal of the oak unless it's a situation where I have absolutely no say and purview. There's plenty of homes out in this area, the Riviera and the Mission Canyon area, that have oaks in proximity to the homes, and they can be trimmed and treated properly and maintained. And I think they're an important part of our vegetation, flora here. And I do think that frankly, it's a beautiful oak, it's a specimen, and it's an asset to the property. So I'd like to see it retained. I think the horizontal thin banding that they're talking about with the sandstone could be successful, especially with the more modern approach to the house. I am concerned about how the roof is treated. So I'll be interested in seeing how they plan to resolve that. And if they return to the full board, I would ask that they provide more neighborhood context photos. I think it would help to inform the public who is watching this, as well as ourselves. The relationship of this home to the street is unique, and I think it provides some opportunities here that some other projects might not have. So I think it would be important to document that so that there's justification for some of our decisions. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any comments, please?
Only one more. I would like to see the south elevation. I would like to see all the elevations. If you're going to make them better, put everything that's on them on there, like the stairway. You're missing stairways that go down to the yards off of the decks. I don't know where. It doesn't tell me where you go from where to get to where. There's 2 stairways. There's a deck on the east end. There's a deck in the middle with a. I'll hold it at that. Let's add some stairways to the elevations and some decks.
So a little more accurate site plan is what you're saying.
Accurate site plan and accurate elevations.
Very good. Thank you. Board Member Ziegler. Okay, we can't hear you. So my comments are beautifully drawn, excellently executed, but I can't support quite the edgy modernness. I too agree. I don't want to see the oak tree lost. I also believe that the FAR needs to be reduced, as Mr. Sweeney earlier stated, but also the style of the house, I think, could be more reflective of the Santa Barbara look. I'm sorry, I sound like a broken record, but I think architects and designers in this community have a responsibility to kind of, celebrate that look, and rather than fight it and take away from it. So that doesn't mean it can't be modern, but I don't see Santa Barbara here. I see this somewhere else. And so I'd like to see a Santa Barbara look to this house. And I leave it up to the architect's creative genius to incorporate that. But to me, this is too modern and too edgy for this particular already established area of the Riviera. And those are my only comments at this time. So here again, they're for comments only. If someone could please entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll attempt a motion. Ms. Kloss has already done most of the work tonight.
Thank you. You guys are great. Great job. I'm proud of you.
I would move that this return to the full board with the following comments. One is that the site plan reflect also a preliminary concept landscape plan, that resolution of driveway location and material be brought back for our review, that the drawings reflect accurately, both in elevations and in plan, locations of decks and stairways, exterior staircases, etc. That consideration be given to a different roof material than a proposed standing the same. That the general architectural approach could be acceptable, but it will be important to see the context and the fabric of the streetscape that encompasses this unique site. And more than likely, once we will have to make a finding for neighborhood compatibility. So we will probably be looking at a neighborhood defined by Middle Road as it drops from APS down to its next major intersection. I can't remember what that is. It's not right in front of me. So that's the context in which we'll be making our decision on. That the home FAR needs to be 85%, not 95%. And that consideration of finished colored materials and exterior lighting, both within the landscape if proposed, or any lighting on the building be shared with us at its next appearance, so we can understand any night glow or lantern effect that the house may have on the adjoining neighborhood and on the city as a whole. Did I forget anything?
Reduction of plate heights perhaps, and the Santa Barbara look, any kind of way you want to word that?
Plate heights, certainly we'll want more section definition of where the plate heights are. I think, Mr. Miller, that there are some other homes around this that were built in the 1950s. And so I'm not terribly concerned about the Sea Ranch look, but yes, making it acknowledge Santa Barbara. There might be a way to do that, perhaps interchange Sea Ranch with some board bat or some Santa Barbara sandstone in a general configuration mixed with the proposed horizontal sandstone pattern might be a way to look at this.
You don't have to design
when it comes back. Yeah, when it comes back. So I'm trying to give them some leeway here because I think the architect has the talent to do what needs to be done to make it part of Santa Barbara. So that would be my motion. We'll not be ready to be in a position to give it project design approval at its next visit. Not be ready.
That's
my motion.
Was there a
yes?
Was there a portion? I guess we should second the motion and then have discussion on it. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes, unless the seconder wants to add to my motion.
Do we have a second to the motion?
I will second the motion, and I just want to make sure there's a comment in there about the oaks, or about the oak rather.
Oh, yes, that Mary, I'll try to state it clearly, that the board does not support removal of the oak on the westerly portion of the site, and that we would look for resolution to maintain that oak's location either by allowing the house or deck to surround it, and anything short of that, we'd want to see documented information from the fire department, from the arborist, and from the city parks division, if appropriate, as to the status of that oak.
That
so
acceptable?
That would be part of the motion.
Is that
Yes.
acceptable? Okay, can I have a roll
Yes,
call?
it's
please?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Chair Miller. This is Mary. I'll go ahead and take the roll call vote. We have Chair Miller,
No.
Vice Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Board Member Kaloss,
Yes.
Board Member Klein. She is recusing herself. Board Member Motisha
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler. Okay, and Board Member Ziegler's thumbs up signals an approval, so the motion carries. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to item number 5. This is a continued item. Did we get?
Chair Miller,
Yes.
to interrupt before we move on to this item, for the record, you should clarify why you're voting no on the previous.
Okay, thank you. I'm voting no because I feel that the motion didn't clearly spell out that the need for a Santa Barbara look. I think it's too modern and too edgy and not appropriate for the neighborhood. And that's just my own opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving to item number 4, 135 Palisades Drive, project design approval is requested. The proposal to demolish an existing 586 square foot residence with an attached 296 square foot garage and construct a new 2,077 square foot, 2-story single family residence with attached 400 square foot 2-car garage and an attached 591 square foot accessory dwelling unit, ADU under separate permit. The proposed 2,477 square foot of development is a 7,209 square foot lot, is 84% of the maximum allowable floor to lot area ratio. Project design approval is requested. Neighborhood preservation findings. Project was last reviewed February 1st, 2021. Did we get any minutes from this review? Mr. Sweeney, could you please share with the minutes?
Okay, thank you. There was a motion to continue indefinitely the full board with the following comments: provide additional information for the section and general configuration of the solar panels, understanding the board does not have purview over the solar panels themselves. Number 2, return with a clear section and plan for landscaping of the proposed landscape area at the second floor roof deck on the south side of the house. Number 3, return with clarification of length, the indicated 12-foot hedge that's appropriate to the landscape plan. Action was taken on a motion by Sweeney, seconded by Motisha. It was a 4-0-2 motion with Colossus and Klein abstaining.
Thank you.
Chair Miller, I would like to clarify if Board Member Colossus and Klein have reviewed the video minutes and plans from the very first time the project was heard on concept review.
Yes. Very good. So they can be part of the review, right?
Yeah, I'm confirming that I have.
Thank you.
Great. All
Yes,
right.
Ms. Burkhardt, I reviewed all the video minutes and the, all the items you had given.
Okay, thank you. I also, before the applicant starts with their presentation, would just like to remind the board that the solar panels are not within your purview. It was discussed a small amount at the last meeting, so I would caution you to be careful in your discussion of the solar panels tonight. And with that, I'll hand it over to Ms. Sherry.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Sherry. Would you
Hi,
like to
good
go over?
evening.
Hi. Sorry it's late.
I'm sorry for you guys. I'll be quick on this one. I know it's late. I won't go over my 15 minutes. I have the 3 minute items that made it into record. And if you want me to, I'd just like to go through those and state what they are and then respond to them, if that's okay.
Yes, that sounds great.
Okay, thanks. The first one is provide the solar panels, show the solar panels aesthetically, like on the site section. And so if we go to that section, they should now be there, shown in their, in all their glory. Right there, the lower, and you can see that they're just barely covered by the parapet wall. The second item was provide landscaping for the area outside of the master bedroom decking. And after deliberation and review with this landscaping component by the structural engineer, and some other reasons, which I will explain, we've decided to eliminate that landscape area. But we, because of a great need to maintain privacy, it's that lower section right there on this drawing. Because of the need to maintain the privacy, we want to maintain the same look from the outside that we had before, continue the wood railing all the way out to that exterior wall. And it's because of that line of sight drawing that we had submitted, and I think you still have that as part of the submittal, that that second railing greatly improves a very private room for them and gives them the utmost privacy for from their neighbors. And it also creates a very distinct horizon line that roofs from down below and power lines are going to be minimized, and they'll be able to just see the sky, which is what they want to see. That's the reason. The interior railing will remain, the exterior railing will remain, and there'll be extra space up there for solar panels in the future. But we feel this is a very important privacy component. It's not advised by structural engineering to put pots or planters up here. We think that it'll eventually not be easy to maintain. And those are the reasons. The third issue was the hedge height needed to be documented correctly in height and length. So the section now and the landscape plan reflect the 8-foot maximum height, which we never intended to go over that anyway. It got shown a little higher, but it was random. And we don't ever intend on that hedge height being over 8 feet. And now the length is indicated on the landscape plan. And those were the last remaining items. And Brent Baldwin, the property owner, is here to make just a couple of quick comments. He's in the other room of my office.
Sure.
So.
Great.
All right, good evening. Thank you for your time tonight. I just wanted to kind of go over where we've been from September when we first submitted. I believe the board had about 8 or 9 items or concerns. We addressed those in before our last meeting. I believe Don has done a good job of going over the 3 remaining items from our last hearing on the subject. And we feel like we've addressed all the concerns that the board has brought up. I just noticed my lighting is kind of dark in here. Anyway, we feel really good about this project as we have been throughout this process. We have engaged our structural engineers, our mechanical engineers, and we're ready to proceed. And if you notice one theme throughout this process with us is we're real excited about this house and being a part of the Mesa community. So with that, I'll leave it there and remain available if you have any questions for me. And thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Baldwin. Did we get any public comment, Barbara?
Thank you, Chair Miller. If you are attending by webinar and would like to comment on this item, please follow the directions on screen and raise your hand by clicking the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel. While we wait for hands, Mary, did we receive any written correspondence for this item?
Thank you, Barbara and Chair Miller. We did not receive any written correspondence for this item.
Thank you. There are no hands raised. So Chair Miller, I'll hand it back to you for questions. Thank you.
All right, great. Board Member Sweeney, do you have any questions, please?
Yeah, just a couple of quick ones. The landscape plan, Ms. Sherry, that you said the hedge was corrected on, we didn't see that on the screen. Could we look at that very quickly?
It's a note on that south property line. If I could point it out, but I can't. So somebody's going to help you.
Yeah, there it is. Okay, I see it now. Thank you. And then could we look at the roof plan that shows the deck without the planters on it? Okay.
That's the second level roof deck. That's the roof deck, not the roof deck with the planters on it.
The one at the bedroom level. That's what I just wanted to look at it very quickly. Oh, there it is. Okay, great. And so the roof finish, now that there's no pots or planters in there, is that a single ply, or what are you doing there?
Yes. Same as the upper level roof deck.
Okay, great. Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Board Member Colossus, do you have any questions, please?
My only question is for Ms. Sherry. So you've been working with the structural engineer. I'm assuming that member sizes have been defined at this point, and the plate heights and elevations that you're illustrating on the exterior elevations are not anticipated to change?
No, they're not. But we did actually have a team meeting this morning, and we're in the process, and we're right now defining the fascia overhang. And I'll just mention that because you brought it up, because we feel that those roof planes and those extended overhangs you can look at the elevation and see they are graphically depicted right now, slightly thinner than they will be if you look at any one of the elevations. You can see it really well on the lower left elevation. Those overhangs are going to be extenuations of the framing. And now that we're in the process of refining those framing members, those dimensions will vary a couple of inches here and there. But this is the intent.
So do you think that these will grow and get thicker or taller?
Slightly thicker by a few inches.
Okay, that's the only question I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any questions, please?
No questions.
Thank you. Board Member Motisha, any questions, please? Where'd he go?
Right here. No questions.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Ziegler, questions? Nod your head.
No questions.
No questions. Thank you. I have no questions at this time either. Thank you. I'll bring it back to the board for comments. Mr. Sweeney, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, Mr. Baldwin, I know we've talked a lot, taken you through a lot, but I think you're there. And I certainly know you appreciate why Santa Barbara has review boards, like in some other cities. So I'm in a position, when it's appropriate, I'll make a motion for project design approval with comments. The only question I have to my fellow board members is to whether they would feel comfortable if we do give it project design approval for final to be at consent, or would you like it brought back to the full board for final?
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. When we are ready, we'll definitely follow up on that. Board Member Kolas, do you have any comments, please?
So I have to say that I'm really torn on this project, and I've driven this neighborhood twice as a part of looking at this project. The neighborhood is eclectic. It is very cottage-like. Typically, there's a lot of wood siding on homes. There is a modern home 2 doors down that I recognize that this is compatible with, but that is not really what I consider to be the fabric of the neighborhood. Given that this is a 2-story structure, I would have rather seen an approach much more like the home that's at the corner of Edgewater and Oliver, where it's an all wood sided home, kind of has more of a beachy, eclectic feel to it. I, however, do recognize that this has gone through the process, and would not want to really be a dissenting voice at this point on the project. So I'll just say that if I were to see a project of this nature come up again in this neighborhood in the future, I would probably not be inclined to approve it, but I will respect the decisions that have been made by the board to date. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Board Member Klein, do you have any comments, please?
Just that I agree with Vice Chair Sweeney. I would be supportive of project design approval today.
Thank you. Board Member Motisha, any comments, please?
Only that I'm in support of the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Ziegler, I guess you're still, we just get to see your pretty face. Okay. I tend to agree with Mr. Kolas. Leslie, I tend to be a stick in the mud of traditional, and I think your comments are accurate. However, they have gone through the board, and we have previously approved it. So I will support this project as well. So if Mr. Sweeney, if you'd like to make a motion, please.
Thank you. I will turn my microphone back on, Ms. Kloss and Mr. Miller. I appreciate your comments. And yes, in hindsight, we could have gone on a few more meetings and got this a little closer to where you want it to be. So I agree. But I think that we've gotten this applicant to where we need to be. I think it will be appropriate. Ms. Klein, you indicated that you will approve this motion, but if I make it for final at your level, because you're doing consent now, I think, is that going to be okay? I see a
Yes, I
nod.
would, yes,
Okay.
yes, I would support that.
So I will make a motion for project design approval and that it go to consent for final. So I will make the following findings: that in general, the project is consistent in appearance with the defining neighborhood. And I'll define the neighborhood as coming from Cliff Drive down to the next major perpendicular cross intersection. That in general, the size, bulk, and scale is compatible with the neighborhood as articulated in the current drawings. That the quality of the materials is appropriate. Let's go to 4, Mr. Bolton. That there are no major disturbance of trees or specimens as proposed in the project. That in general, it meets and defines the public health, safety, and welfare as provided per the purview of the Single Family Design Board. That the project has met good neighbor guidelines, and the project does not inhibit any general public views from the public right-of-way. So I think that's my motion, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you. If there is no discussion, may I have a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. This is Mary. I'll go ahead and take the roll call vote. We have Chair Miller,
Yes?
Vice Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Board Member Kloss,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes,
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler. Thank you. Board Member Ziegler's thumbs up signals in approval, and the motion carries.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And Vice Chair Sweeney, I do know what you're saying about appreciating a design review process as opposed to some communities that don't. So I know exactly what you're saying. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. There is a 10-day appeal process for this project. Thank you. And I believe that's the last item on the agenda. So I move to close March 1st, Single Family Design Board. Thank you very much, you guys.
You know.